my game. Let's get it.
Yo, guys, it's me, T. I'm the boat carrier and the log carrier, where the and there is using the logical notation. And yeah, like we're just here to talk about whether it is the case that the IRL debaters are overrated, whether they should be lower, whether the fiction debaters are more skillful, because Sakazuki seems to hold this sort of opinion. So like, yeah, where do you guys want to begin? I mean, I have 10 minutes to kind of just give my opinion.
Sure. So we need to go over what makes a debater good.
I'd say it's their ability to win a debate.
And what about you, C?
Well, we have to look at what a debate is, right? Like a debate is where two parties, defend opposing propositions, right? So it seems as if what makes a good debater is their ability to rationally defend the proposition using things like evidence, reasoning skills, and although things like rhetoric and, appealing to the audience would be nice to have in a debater, it's not necessary to be a good debater.
Okay, so for Yanni, first of all, we need to ask, what constitutes winning a debate?
I'd like to, maybe you can reduce it down further than this, but I'd say you win a debate if your argument is more, if you justify your argument more than the opponent's able to refute your argument or respond to it. So if your argument seems to be like the more evidence one or the more reasoned one, then it seems like you win the debate.
Okay. And what about you, C? What do you think constitutes winning a debate?
Similar to what Yanni said, I think you win a debate, and this is a biconditional, right? You win a debate if and only if you justify your position more so than the opponents. And you're going to do this through things like evidence, whether that evidence is abductive, so your arguing explains the data the best, whether it's deductive, so you're reasoning from like some sort of specific set of propositions to some guaranteed conclusion,
and
or whether it's like inductive, right? It's like where we have like a prior set of observations, that leads to this conclusion probabilistically.
Okay. So first, to start off with, I think we need to go over whether or not these philosophy debaters are actually able to demonstrate this ability to win a debate, right, through presentation of arguments, as well as fiction debaters can. So you guys can present your case. Go ahead, see.
I was thinking of Yanni. Look, man, philosophy debaters, most of them study logic, right? The whole point of philosophy is to rationally inquire about the nature of reality, the nature of the world, the nature of human discourse, like the nature of things simpliciter. And so it seems as if they're inquiring and forwarding arguments for and against, that's their profession. Forwarding arguments is going to be something that they study, right? Like logic, metalogic, reasoning, these are all things that the philosophy debater is going to study explicitly. Now, you might argue that the fiction debater has an understanding of these things, and obviously they do, right? Like all people have a understanding of how to reason and stuff like that. But the logician / the philosopher has a deeper and more refined understanding of these principles, such that in a debate situation, they'll be able to recognize reasoning flaws, and they'll be able to connect propositions together with more finesse than the average fiction debater.
Okay. And as for you, Yanni, like, what do you have to say about whether or not these philosophy debaters fit the criteria of, being able to win debates? What do you think makes them special in comparison?
I'd say, especially in comparison to, these kinds of like fiction debaters, I'd say the main difference between IRL and fiction debaters is that the IRL debaters have a much higher ceiling because the topics they debate upon are, number one, more complex and require more background knowledge, and in virtue of them requiring more background knowledge, there's more substance to go over. And because there's more substance to go over, it seems like they have more on their plate when it comes to justifying the proposition they're arguing for. And obviously, if they're accustomed to arguing with more substance for or in favor of their proposition, then it seems like they'd be better debaters even in neutral settings compared to fiction debaters, because again they're more accustomed to arguing in favor for a proposition using more substance and more reasoning and more evidence.
I want to see, what about you? What do you think?
So what was the question? I was playing with my water bottle.
Okay. Is there something wrong with you?
It's autism, no.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's a high functioning one, huh? Anyways, see, so first question, do you wear a helmet when you're on the bus? And second question, what do you think makes these fiction debaters so much better in comparison to these, or these philosophy debaters so much better and more special in comparison to these fiction debaters?
Like the first question, I don't actually wear helmets on the bus because I don't have any helmets.
So that's the reason.
I
Okay.
mean, I don't have any helmets to wear, right?
Okay, so if you had a helmet, you'd wear on the bus?
I mean, like, no, let's just sit now with the answer then, trivially.
Okay. Okay.
From this guy. Anyways, this guy doesn't have any. Like, that's actually a good example, right? Like I said, if I don't have helmets.
Yeah, just shut your mouth and keep going, man.
Alright. So, like, what I was going to say is, like, look, these fiction debaters, right? They have like knowledge on the series that they're debating, and usually they argue for a proposition, given evidence within that series, and that's how they debate in fiction. And IRL debaters similarly do the same thing, right? So they'll do something like a topic, and they'll reason from what they've read about the topic in order to forward the position that they have on the topic. But the reasons to why IRL debaters are better than fiction debaters on average, and this is also going to like bounce off what Yanni said, is because the debating things are more complex. IRL debates are, well, IRL, right? They don't just involve abstract reasoning, but they also might involve reference to empirics, right? You're not going to talk about empirics mostly when you're talking about Naruto being Sasuke. A lot of the discourse is really concentrated on the events within the narrative. However, if I'm talking about philosophy of mind with Apollo or something, I'm not only going to be talking about abstract reasoning and what I take the mind to be and what I take physical stuff to be. I'm also going to be talking about empiric studies, things that support that outside of the abstract discourse and the abstract reasoning. So it seems that they have to use more knowledge from different scopes in order to forward their position, and they also have a greater grasp of reasoning skills, as I said before.
Yeah, okay. And another question to add, because this is a point that I've seen many people actually try to purport whenever they're talking about whether or not these people actually either A, they just know a lot, or whether or not they're actual good debaters. So the question is simply, right, do you think that neutral topics exist? And if so, do you think that philosophy debaters will be worse at them?
I mean, Yanni, this is to me or Yanni?
Both of you can answer. Big Bro should go first. That's all I'm saying.
Yanni, go ahead, bro, you're older.
Did you?
Right. I think the question of neutral topics is a bit weird. I think that generally speaking, the kinds of things that people describe as neutral topics are really like, oh my god, the kind of conditions for a neutral topic are kind of hard to meet.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really think there's there's always going to be some kind of background knowledge on any topic unless it's completely foreign to both debaters. And you can't even name me a topic that's completely foreign to both debaters.
Yeah.
Where both debaters actually engage on the topic. Like maybe it might be like a verse they both haven't read, but even then, like one might be more adapt to fiction debating, the other one might be more adapt to philosophy debating. So it really depends on the context overall. I don't think there's a completely neutral topic. There's some topics where knowledge is there are some topics that are mutual, and I think people seem to like confuse mutual and neutral topics. I don't think there's a real neutral, but I think there's some neutral topics where like knowledge is like roughly even, and like they've been doing it for the same amount of time roughly. And then but supposing that neutral topics do exist, like maybe like a red versus blue or something, I would say again that IRL debaters probably are better just because they're more adept to justifying propositions, that require more substance for them to justify a proposition with. Like it probably is way harder to justify moral realism being true compared to justifying like narrative reasons for Sasuke, for example.
And it's also sort of like what's it called? Whenever you're talking about red versus blue, it's sort of like an abstract idea. Like there's no real way or standard you can appeal to determine whether or not red is better than blue. However, like say somebody can argue for aesthetic realism, right? And say that, okay, well, since aesthetic realism is true, therefore we actually do have an objective standard, right? And those sorts of philosophical concepts would always be invoked, right? And whenever I see people saying that, oh yeah, there's a neutral topic, right? It's like, okay, well, a neutral topic is one where the knowledge gap is irrelevant. But how do you determine which knowledge gap is relevant, right? Clearly, if somebody knows more, which allows them to like pull on their knowledge for an argument, which leads to them winning the debate, it was clearly relevant to them winning the debate, right? So like how do you determine which one is relevant or not? But I'll leave it to Lil Bro C to continue.
It's like contrary to like my friends and the VC here, I do think that there's a possibility of having a neutral topic, right? Where knowledge regarding the topic itself is equal. That doesn't mean that the topic is neutral, all things considered, right? Because I think the IRL debate is going to have greater knowledge when it comes to things like logic and propositions and natural reason from one proposition to another. But within the debate itself, the knowledge regarding the topic provided could be equal. Suppose, for example, that I have two interlocutors, I give them like a sheet, right? And on this sheet, I give them information about a position I want them to defend. And then I'm telling them to use that information to defend that topic or defend that proposition. Sure, it could be the case that one of the interlocutors happens to know more, but I think that it could be possible that they know proportionally equal, like proportionally the same amount of knowledge, so that it's not, crazy as a gap. However, hold on, I actually need to start getting going. However, I do think it's the case that IRL debaters will thrash most fiction debaters on neutral topics.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on one second.
Yeah, so
I mean, building up on what he
Yeah.
said, it's kind of something you see within the consensus in the fiction community, even not just now, but also for a long time. Like, Shinra, I know you've been a low-tier fucking trash debater before. And
You and I were down in the trenches, right?
Listen, buddy, what's the first thing a low-tier does when he wants to get better, apart from like maybe becoming someone's student?
Oh, well,
to try to learn logic.
Yeah, try to learn logic, try to read the series that you're talking about in depth first, right? So again, typically whenever people are trying to get better, the first thing they do is actually try and gain deeper wells of knowledge, right, in comparison to what they had before, right? So it's like,
and sorry to cut you off there, but like even looking at the consensus in the old community, towards the top of tier lists, like it'd be people who predominantly debate IRO or have like some background debating IRO.
Yeah, like Trini.
And that's been consistent throughout the entirety of the community.
Yeah.
Every single tier list or any era of the debate community always leans towards having people that debate IRL towards the top of the tier list. Like the whole IRL, people not being as bad or not being as bad as fiction debaters is like a very new phenomenon.
Yeah, a very new phenomenon purported by a single individual who was who owns Fudo's PFP. But aside from that thing, right, if you look at the old community, look at people like Six, look at people like Draco, right, the reason why people consider them to be good, shut your mouth, boy, the reason why people consider them to be good is because they know a lot about philosophy, or they know a lot about whatever they're talking about, right? So clearly saying knowledge isn't actually integral to your debate skill and how good your rhetoric is and how good your argumentation is just false. You can go ahead now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's not like something that's creeping up within the palm. It's a Sakazuki exclusive idiosyncrasy. So like, I want to use Infinity as an example, right? So like, Infinity and Sakazuki are similar insofar as I think that they might underrate the IRL debaters a bit. But Infinity doesn't underrate the IRL debaters insofar as saying that they're below some of these fiction debaters and like they're overrated. He underrates them in the sense that he says that he's above them, right? Which is different. Yeah. Sakazuki thinks that they're just not as good. I think Infinity thinks that they're probably as good, maybe a bit overrated, but he's just better / underrated. Whereas Sakazuki thinks that these guys are heavily overrated and that everyone in the com is mistaken. But like, obviously he was wrong. Yanni brings up a very good point, right, with the inductive case. Sakazuki loves to talk about how you have to appeal to the audience. You have to convince the audience of your skill and of your position being true. And it seems as if what the IRL debaters have done is they've come into our community and almost had a unanimous verdict that they're categorically above all of these fiction debaters, apart from like these old-headed niggas, like, no offense, Jin, but like people like Jin think that they're overrated, or people like Sakazuki who think that they're able to contest, or like even Parla, or even like people like Sakazuki who think that Archie thinks that he beat Destroyer, or like
get a load of that guy.
No offense to Archie, of course, but like obviously this is just my opinion. I don't think he did well with Destroyer. Infinity claims that he beat Destroyer. I watched that recording. It was not good.
You guys throat ripped down.
That was like Sakazuki, so obviously I love these people I mentioned, very love you, actually, everything is my opinion.
No.
What's it called? Sakazuki thinks that because he was able to like meta debate Raylan Van Mason on whether I beat him
In a debate,
on
like, come on, bro.
Inverse, on a story that he made on Skype Universe, he thinks that because he was able to meta debate Mason on that topic, which he doesn't know anything about Skype Universe, and
Yeah, keep in mind, he wrote the series and he doesn't know anything about it. Right? Come on now.
I mean, okay. One more thing I'd like to add. I mean, like Sakazuki's a cool guy and all, but like when he starts bringing up, consensus being a way to determine how good a debater is or the certain debate wins, it's like kind of the craziest thing to me. It's because when he does the debate, he's appealing to the same kinds of things that me, C, and Shinra appeal to. Like he's trying to appeal to who justifies proposition. So he's appealing to that to judge who wins the debate, and then he goes off of consensus. We're looking at who wins the debate external to judgment, when the consensus might conflict with what the judgment actually should be. It's like kind of insane to me, but that's kind of a side point. Shinra, do you have any more?
Yeah, so it's just simple, like, okay, well, look, if you look at the Flames, you look at the Kuros, you look at the Zennies, you look at the Monos, right, like, you can notice that, like, a lot of people in the com are, like, really stupid, right? So because a lot of people in the com are really stupid, using them, right, using the average layman who probably isn't actually listening to the debate as a metric for who is winning, is kind of stupid. Like, okay, why is Care even allowed to give opinions on debates at all? Now, you may say, oh, you need to like convince the layman, right? But I don't even take the view that half of these grunts are laymen, right? I take the view that these people, they're subhumans, right? Who can barely actually track arguments. Like, look at Careless, right? Like, obviously nobody's going to say, yeah, cheers. Obviously nobody's going to say that, oh my god, well, Careless, yeah, look, Careless voted for me on the poll, guys. Like, look, oh my god, consensus. Like, nobody's going to say that, right? Because everyone trivially knows that the guy's an idiot, right? So again, it's the sort of thing.
You know what it is? I think like it's like you appeal to a retard. You appeal to one retard individually. It's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Careless is a retard. You know? You appeal to 100 carelessness. You appeal to 1,000 fucking flames. Sorry, flames. And then it's like a consensus. So it's like now magically they're unretarded. Like they're retarded.
Yeah, it's like
what the fuck? Individually, you wouldn't take their opinion. But now there's a million retards into their opinions. I don't know. Like consensus being a factor is kind of a weird thing to me. It just tells me who's more favored by the audience, and obviously favorability stems not just from rhetoric and who's winning the debate, but also like a million other psychological factors.
Yeah, like okay, so you
nice man who has a bad PFP.
You can look at like grunt syndrome, right? Like obviously these grunts, because they have that pack mentality of Nice one, mate. But obviously, because they have this pack mentality, they don't want to actually leave it, right? Like if they see like everyone voting on one, like for one person, trivially they'll also want to vote for that one person, regardless of whether or not they actually think they're winning. And it's like, look,
what are we talking about now?
Yeah, we're just talking about why consensus sucks.
No, it should be a good metric.
Okay. I have a lot of stuff to say as someone that's a victim.
Yeah, I think actually we can leave it up to C, because C is actually the biggest victim of this. Like usually whenever I see people voting on posts for me, it's like I ignore it, I troll about it. But like for C, people are like, actually, unironically, I've seen people like genuinely just sit there and be like, yeah, no, we're just gonna vote against C. It's like, look, all of you are morons, right? Like if you took you outside of the server, outside of your little bubble, right, you get strangled, right? Like why am I seeing Nexus say he's winning a debate against C, bro? Like, yeah, I bump.
Look, man, I mean, let me just say something quickly. I've never won a poll my life, right? In these sorts of communities, in these sorts of service, it's just impossible for me to win polls. And like, oh shit, my train, bro, coming in 5 minutes. Wait, I need to jog. But as I was saying, right, basically, bro, when I debated Luminara, that circle that was IRO focused, I debated times, I smoked him like, what, 22-8 or some shit like that. When I debated Nexus, Flames, Buddhist niggas, you, etc. And these polls, bro, they makes you wonder, like, how do I consistently lose polls on one server and then win polls on another server? I've lost polls to Nexus in one server. And obviously, the answer to that is, the winner of the polls is determined by the individuals within the server,
Yeah.
right? And that will contribute, but it's determined by their opinions, what they like, who they like. But it's determined by the actual substance of the arguments. So because if my substance changes when I change servers, but the people, the type of people does change. Oh, you see, I'm so fat. Oh my god.
Yeah. So specifically again, right, the type of people. So for example, some people I've seen them. They just sit there and be like, ha ha ha, he's British. Like they do the same recycled, overused British joke. Ha ha, egg tea funny. Like your mom beats you when you go
Anything
home,
as
bro.
well.
Like
Unlike
okay, who's doing that, bro?
It's this one. Unlike Shinra and C here, I'm actually not a victim of polls. I'm actually a great benefactor of polls. Polls have saved my debating law like millions of times, and it's like I use these kinds of like tiny psychological tricks to win polls every time. It's like it works every time. So maybe I would like throw a rhetorical jab, and like
Yeah, you're making it now.
I throw a poll into the chat after I hear a rhetorical jab. I'd be the one speaking. I'd be the one arguing, and then I set a poll. I speak directly to the audience, and the audience, they're now being engaged into the conversation, and now they vote for me. Maybe like I make it so the poll, like how it's 1-2, I make my name the first one, so they see one, they press maybe I vote for myself as soon as the poll comes out, and like they see one vote to my name and they vote for me. Like there's so much psychological tricks you can use to win polls. That polls is not a valid way to judge, and obviously polls is the way that niggas tend to measure consensus. Now I've seen this specific cope before. I've seen these two copes. Number one, well, polls doesn't necessarily have to be consensus. What if I take consensus from who's competent? Okay, who's competent? Who's the arbiter? Who's the one that's judging who's competent? If it's you, you are fallible. Okay, so your judging metric is also fallible as well. Number two, it's like, polls only matter if, it's a certain kind of audience, and, the audience will listen. How do you measure that? You cannot measure that. There's no way to justify polls. Polls is just a dick measuring context. It measures, who has more aura and who can aura.
Yeah, who can yell the loudest, who can beat their chest the most, who can slip in the rhetorical jabs, slip in the rhetoric, slip in the argumentation, and it's like clear that
I made my train.
Okay, yeah. But it's like clear that like obviously using polls as a metric just doesn't work. Now if you say, okay, well, I want consensus from like people who are generally considered competent, right? It can be in this community, because I think again, when you say generally considered competent, it falls back into the same reason why polls are bad, right? Because most people in this community, and I'm gonna name some names, and I'm gonna call you terrible, right? So to start off with, Mother, you're trash. Flames, you're trash. Frosty, you're trash. Pianist, you're trash. Tyrell, you're trash. What's it called? Who else is there? What's it called?
Holy shit.
Flames. I'm gonna say your name again. I'm gonna call you trash. Flames, you're trash. Careless. Why is Careless even allowed in the community, bro? Like, what does he contribute? Careless, you're trash. What else? Who else is there? Wow, there's a lot of bad people. Oh yeah, Akudo, you're trash. Who else is there? Ningen, you're trash. Hero.
Look, guys. I'm not here to be toxic, right? I love every debater.
Yeah, is that why you got banned from? Is that why you got banned from Tosuki? Okay, yeah, cheers.
I even love Sakazuki. Let me say something. Sakazuki, I love everyone on Discord, bro. But everyone has different characteristics. Everyone has different temperaments, right? You have the Doxers, Gyro, Vortex, etc. Holy shit, my train is here. I'm gonna go catch that. Sorry, man. Hold on.
Jesus Christ, this guy is sick, bro. But yeah, obviously you have different archetypes of people. Whenever I called all of these guys trash, like obviously, I mean it for some of them, but I don't mean it for all of them. Like, some of you aren't bad, right? Like, but like specifically the people who I definitely think are bad, right, are Flames, right? But obviously, right, these people, whenever like they make up the general consensus, is the sort of reason why 2-year-olds aren't allowed to vote, like, I think you can agree with me. The reason why 2-year-olds aren't allowed to vote should also be the same reason why why Flames and Nexus shouldn't be allowed to vote, right?
Yeah, it's because they're not qualified, and even qualified. It's like, I mean, not too much Nexus. I don't think he's in the community. He's like 13. Flame's like 16. So Flames can take criticism, right? He deserves it. But it's like,
Scumbag.
you're not qualified,
Yeah.
bro. It's like, imagine if Shinra like was able to vote on like child marriage laws. Yo, Shinra should be nowhere near able to vote for child marriage laws, right? That'd be insane. That'd be disgusting. Imagine if someone like Rishan could vote for like maybe like medical issues, right? So like Rishan
Yeah.
might blunder and like vote in favor of allowing people to have
High
their
functioning,
organs
come on.
taken in their sleep.
Yeah.
Like something like that. Like someone like Rishan might sanction rape and like allow rape to happen. It's insane. So like we wouldn't allow that in real life. Why are we allowing it on Discord? Why are we using it as like a real method?
Yeah.
Also Rishan, nah man.
Yeah, but like I don't think that saying competent consensus specifically. I think like, okay, well, for you to be allowed to make tier lists, we need to restrict people's freedom of speech. Okay, so for you to be allowed to make tier lists, you need to at least be high tier 4, right? For you to be allowed to speak about the other people who are above tier 4's debate skill, you yourself need to be above tier 4. For you to be allowed to vote on polls, right, between two people who are above tier 4, you also need to be above tier 4 as well, right? And by like increasing the ceiling you need to be at for you to give opinions, right, trivially you will get a better, more competent consensus, because obviously you will have these super hyper mega confused idiot individuals like Azrael, right, who keeps commenting and hating on me on every YouTube video he's in, right? You won't get these people on your videos, right?
Yeah, exactly, guys. I mean, I completely agree with the opposition being made up.
Yeah, so see, do you want to explain why you always lose consensus, boy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on trains, so my internet's a bit bad, but pretty much right. The reason why I was these consensus, I think are multiple reasons. I don't think I'm like as entertaining, quote unquote, as a lot of other debaters. Like when you see a lot of other debaters, they do theatrics, they do the insults and they do the rhetoric, quote unquote, and that's just not really how I debate. And so I think they might find it uninteresting. Also, like my tone of voice, probably. And the sorts of topics I talk about, right? I don't talk about things that they're interested in. Like they're interested in hearing about Naruto, Sasuke, One Piece. Right? They're not interested in hearing about like God or Mirology or whatever. So it's just like I just don't think we're meshing well. So yeah.
Yeah. And do you think that there may be some form of like bias that's being promoted by these manipulative, conniving Discord groups with their grunts? And when I say grunts, I mean Kura and Zeni, but yeah. Do you think it's also being purported by them, or do you think the reason why you're losing consensus so often is because you are a victim of grunts like Kura and Zeni? Like,
not necessarily. Look, these guys have no power in the Discord, status quo. They're kind of like causally impotent. If you say so myself. All they really do is like sit and chat and like say things that people don't really care about. So who cares?
Yeah. So would you say like who do you think is like the most specific, if you can name a person, is the biggest contributing factor to you losing all your polls?
I mean, I don't think it's a person. I think it's like a
hive mind.
A mindset. Yeah. Right? It's like, I mean, it's not one individual person that makes me lose polls, but I think that some people that might contribute are the people in chat, like Jen, maybe Kuro, these people that like comment on the debate while listening.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's it for the video, guys. If you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe. This is another banger YouTube video from Shinra, and this is with Shinra. That was C. That was also Yanni. And we're going. Touch my fist, guys.
Alright, let's get it.
Let's go. Sorry. You're lucky. You might be right, bro. Like there might be something wrong with me.
It's the autism.